San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on! Get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling in our new time slot, 8 to 10 p.m. Sunday night Eastern Time and 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And we're just following the NFL playoff game, and the 49ers won. And I guess it was in the last minute because they were losing when I got out of my car to get here. So that's quite interesting. We've got Bryan Alvarez here. Bruce Mitchell from the Pro Wrestling Torch will be joining us in about a half an hour. We're going to be taking your phone calls on the current scene of professional wrestling. We can talk about Raw, SmackDown, the Tokyo Dome, which was on Saturday, and plenty of other things. The Raw anniversary show, the direction of the WWE. I actually went to a WWE house show on Friday night in San Francisco at the Cow Palace, and it was actually not that good of a show. We can talk about a little bit about that as well as Portland wrestling. If you thought that Owen Hart thing on Raw on Monday was appropriate, and if you did, I want to hear it because, quite frankly, I didn't. So, anyway, talk about a lot of stupidity in professional wrestling. Actually, I want to wait until Bruce Mitchell comes on because I think he has like a laundry list of it. But I've got a lot of things in the last 2 days. Actually, Saturday was quite a stupid day for professional wrestling, I'd have to say, all in all.
When was the house show, Friday or Saturday?
The San Francisco house show was Friday night.
Okay.
I don't remember too much stupidity in that one. It's not really a great show, though. But a lot of guys hurt. Interesting, just before I got here, I was reading an article, and it kind of relates to pro wrestling. Actually, it relates to it a lot. The Japanese Sumo Association is going to start testing the sumo wrestlers for anabolic steroids because the injury rate has gotten out of control, and they are blaming it on perhaps a lot of usage of steroids. They don't know, but that's one of the culprits they believe, and they're going to start testing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have said I was surprised like maybe a year ago, but I've seen so many guys that are on steroids that look like they were not on steroids that it does not surprise me anymore.
Well, that's one of the funny things about the steroids is,
people have an assumption of what a guy on steroids looks like,
and most of them don't.
Yeah.
I mean, a few of them do, but no, because it's like I saw like on a website somebody.
One of those famous lists of
the list. People were voting on who they thought in the WWE was on steroids, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, I was just going like, man, you people are so naive because
these lists are comically short, like 5 guys. Yeah,
exactly. It's like. If we're going to conservatively say that 80% of the guys on steroids are in the WWE are on steroids, 70-80%, go through the list, and you're going to find out that it goes pretty deep. Anyway, we're going to come back right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Bryan Alvarez on Figure 4 Weekly, and we're going to hear for 2 hours from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time and 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And, Bryan, how was your New Year?
It was good.
That's
I
good.
did the newsletter all night.
You did?
Is that pathetic?
Oh, man, that's why I did it a day early this week.
Yeah.
Because there was just like, no, I wasn't going to be doing that one.
I took too many days off right after the issue before had been finished because I was burned out on wrestling. So I ended up not having a New Year, but who cares? Yeah,
well, I can't say mine was much better because everybody in the house was sick, so we ended up doing nothing.
I think you need to fix the ventilation in your house.
Why do you say that?
Because it seems that everyone's always sick.
Well, that's when you have a little baby.
Oh, yeah.
They just get sick, and then when they get sick and you're around them all day. I mean, I don't really get sick that much, but it just seems that it's constantly people are sick. Yeah, you're right. Oh, well, that's not good. The Tokyo Dome yesterday, Yuji Nagata beat Josh Barnett. Then, let's see, got Raw on Monday was the best of show, best of 2002. And then SmackDown was the first live show of the year, the first new TV show of the year. And a lot of injuries in WWE right now. Brock Lesnar's got a bad head, bad ribs, bad knee. Let's see, Big Show's got a bad back. Hunter's got a bad leg. Scott Steiner's got bad wind. Kurt Angle's got a bad knee. Rey Mysterio Jr.'s got a bad knee. Is healthy?
Jim Ross.
Yeah, Jim Ross is healthy, and they did a nice feature of him on Confidential last night, and he loves the Oklahoma University fight song. But actually, he's not that healthy either because his Ross report is over and done with.
I know. I'm going to miss the Ross report.
Yeah, I know. It was quite. It was. I don't know what we're. It's if nothing else, you could see the injury report every week.
Yeah, and I mean the whole thing was they stopped cooperating with people a long time ago, and they even sent out that press release saying if you want information, if you want accurate information, you need to go to WWE.com, and that was a Ross report, and now that's not there. So
I think that they're blaming information maybe on their troubles. Which is it's.
Well, I read some of the things that were written about people were upset and this and that, and like maybe morale is down because of the Ross report, when in reality morale is down because things are bad.
Because nobody's making money. Yeah. Like they're used to making.
I mean, the thing with WWE that's so pathetic is there's so many problems, and nobody really wants to look at the problems, or at least the people that should be looking at them. There are people that do, but the people that should be looking at the problems don't, and they're always looking at something else to blame them on. Oh, it's the Ross report's fault. Oh, it's,
The business is exposed.
Yeah, the business was exposed.
It's been exposed for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it all of a sudden hit last week, or this in the last couple of months. The writing on Raw is terrible, and even SmackDown. I mean, like, when I was watching that show, there are so many things on that show, a lot of the interview segments and stuff. I'm watching it, I'm going like, they don't get it. That's not what people want. And, I mean, that wedding thing was horrible.
Yeah, and they think it's so horrible that it's good. But maybe you'll have a segment, on one show that's so bad it's good, but this has been dragging on for so many shows that it's so bad that it's horrible.
It's not good. It's not good at all.
Anyway. Another thing with SmackDown is sometimes I'll watch a show and some things look so brilliant, and at the same time there'll be another segment immediately afterwards that I just roll my eyes like, okay, why did this happen? Like Eddie Guerrero, he had that mullet. There were signs every week for that mullet. And you could at least have done a hair match with Kidman, you know what I mean?
Isn't that so funny? As soon as I saw him with that haircut, that was the first thing I thought was, well, first of all, I thought, that's his trademark. I mean, it's like, yes, it's old-fashioned, but it's his trademark. That's where he gets his heat.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that. And, okay, if you're going to do it, at least get some mileage out of it.
Yeah, he just beat Kidman 2 weeks in a row. And why couldn't they have just done next week on SmackDown? Even if they don't want to do it for the Royal Rumble, how about next week on SmackDown? Kidman, I want your belt, and, I'll put my mullet on the line or whatever.
Yeah.
And do a hair match. Instead, he just shows up bald, and it's like, oh, there's money down the toilet right there.
Yeah, but...
That mullet was money.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, we're going to go start heading to phone calls. We've got a full bank of calls right now, but if you want to jump in, you can jump in at 1-800-878-PLAY as soon as we hang up on somebody. We're going to Atlanta, Georgia first with Tom. Tom, what's going on? Snooze, you lose. We're going to go to Ed in San Antonio, Texas. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, guys. I got a couple questions about the Tokyo Dome show, but first I want to say Thursday night I was very disappointed, and I'm not talking about the wedding. I'm talking about the fact that one of the greatest mullets of all time is no longer.
Oh, my God.
No longer with us.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. That's kind of like a history thing with mullets, but I guess there's no more now.
Yeah, that's the last one because Mike Awesome still has one in Japan. I think there's probably a couple of others over there still.
Uh-huh. And my questions about the Tokyo Dome show is first about Josh Barnett.
Yes.
What are the reports? How did he look? Does it look like he could actually make it in pro wrestling, or is this just...
Well, rather than worry about the reports, I'll have a tape of that show in the next couple of days, so I would rather judge after seeing it. I heard he had a good match, though, but then again, it's like it's Yuji Nagata. So, but I was told they had a good match.
Okay. And my other question is about Takayama.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that they're planning on pushing to the moon. And my question is... Not
so much to the moon, but he's just so over that they got to do something with him. But, I mean, it's like, yeah, he's wrestling with one eye. I mean, that guy's going to be...
It would be bad.
I keep thinking, like, what's he going to be like when he's old? But I'm sure he's already feeling that today.
Yeah. And it's like, let's say they give him the All Japan title or the IWGP title. Do you think it'll work and succeed, or do you think it'll be a failure like, what's his name, Yoshida? The sumo wrestler?
Who are we talking about?
The guy who...
Tadao Yasuda. Well, Tadao Yasuda is horrible. Takayama's not horrible. It won't be that kind of a failure, no.
Okay, so you actually think that it could work?
Actually...
It depends on what they do with him,
Yeah.
I mean, they gave him the GHC title for a while, and then he had it for, what was it, like 12 days, and It was over.
Yeah. No, but I think in New Japan, I think he'll do all right. And I guess it looks like he's going to be doing a lot more work with New Japan now that they gave him that title.
Yeah, it seems like it. And also, if I could ask one more thing about Billy Kidman.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me, in my opinion, he's been putting on a lot of good matches, and he's getting more of a crowd reaction. Do you think that they're going to continue to push him, or do you think they'll cut him off at the knees?
No, they're going to push him because that's Paul Heyman project, because he knows that they need to get another new guy in that great match mix. Because he knows he's got to keep presenting good matches, and there's, two of the guys that are in that mix, Angle and Mysterio, are out, so he's got to get, a couple new faces in there. So that's what this time has been. I mean, it's planned.
Are they planning on pairing him up with Torrie Wilson, or is he going to stay by himself?
I don't know, because they threw him together on TV, and usually that means something.
They've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah, right, without ever pulling the trigger on it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe he'll wind up with Dawn Marie.
With Dawn Marie?
Yeah. Cheating on... Yeah. I like that story. I've written about that a couple of times. I like that story. I don't know if that's where they're going, but...
That means more Al.
No. That's the way to get rid of Al. No.
Yeah.
No. Dawn Marie cheats on Al with Billy Kidman, and then we never see Al again.
Oh,
he's heartbroken, and he goes out of the country. And Torrie goes for revenge, or she's heartbroken. I don't know.
Okay, and if I could just throw in one real quick thing. You mentioned about Sean Stasiak yesterday.
Yes.
On your report. Is he his own imposter, or what?
Yes, I believe that he is his own imposter. Yes.
So he's really that whacked in the head, then.
I don't know that as a fact. But yeah, he is that whacked in the head.
Not a professional diagnosis, but it is a theory.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we got to get going, Ed. Okay. Okay. We're going to go to Jonathan in Savannah, Georgia. Jonathan, how are you today? Hello. Hello, Jonathan.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I was nothing. I was just on hold.
Okay. What's going on? You're on the air.
Oh, I'm on the air now?
Yes, you were on the air, Jonathan.
Okay. I had a question. I want to ask Dave. I want to ask you. What do you think of Hogan's comments about Mick Foley on that off the record?
Actually, I don't have anything negative to say about that because
he's sort of right.
Exactly. He's sort of right. So yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about that. And I'm friends with Mick Foley, but no, I don't. It didn't get me mad when I read it. I mean, I know a lot of people got mad because they love Mick Foley, but it's truth.
Foley did throw his body off cages.
Yeah. And
he did eat cheeseburgers.
Yep.
And
his career was over young. And yeah, so I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. And my other question for you, I actually read something. I think it was through the Torch about is Vince actually thinking about, this is the rumor, and I want to ask you, actually handing over Raw to Bischoff?
I've heard that rumor for a month, and now that it hasn't happened in a month, I'm thinking that it's probably not true. I don't know. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I don't think so.
I just wonder how it would even be done, because I can just see Vince giving him, supposedly he was going to give him power and let him hire and fire with...
No, they'll never do that. They'll never do that.
But even creative control, I can see Eric booking something and, Vince just going crazy on the sidelines for a week and then scrapping the whole thing.
Yeah, but the other thing also is Eric's not a booker.
Yeah.
Eric's not a good creative guy. I mean, that's like one of those myths.
Well, I think he's a creative guy in that he can come up with good ideas, but not necessarily know how to execute them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to a degree. I think he's more of a creative production guy, not a creative wrestling booker guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe just thinking of concepts that could be done, but not knowing how to do them. Like, we saw the whole Peace Festival and got the idea of the invasion or whatever the hell the deal.
When he went to the Tokyo Dome. Yeah, but that's not
knowing how to actually execute it on his own TV.
Yeah, but that's not a booker. That's just someone who watched wrestling and paid attention.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to go head to a break right now. We're going to have Bruce Mitchell up in about 10 minutes. And we'll see you right after this break. It's listen to Sports Byline USA, Wrestling Observer Live. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, and we'll be joined by Bruce Mitchell of the Pro Wrestling Torch in just a couple of minutes as well. One of the things earlier in the show we were talking about steroids, and you mentioned that a lot of times people don't realize guys that are on them. There's the other extreme. I know some people who think that everyone who has a decent build must be using steroids.
Yeah.
And it's not that, that's not the case either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So, but you'd be surprised at some people who are...
I think there's some people that don't know how to work out. And so they see people that have a body and assume, well, he must be on the juice.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought was pretty interesting. Did you see the ESPN Outside the Lines piece on UFC?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, they showed the Josh Barnett hearing, and, Josh Barnett tested positive for steroids. And Josh sat there and just goes, look at me, okay? And you could see, they had this test that said he tested positive for 3 different steroids, and the doctor just, they were not amused by that. That was not a good excuse.
Well, that's the exact same thing that I thought when I heard that he tested positive. It was like, wait a second. Josh Barnett? And that opened my eyes.
Okay, but if you look at Josh Barnett a year before that, and then on that show, you see a huge physical difference.
Yeah.
He just has horrible genetics.
Yeah.
I mean, horrible. But which is another thing. People probably would look at him and think that he can't fight.
Yep.
And that has nothing to do with it either.
Yep.
So anyway, we are going to get back to the lines. They're all lit up right here, and we're going to go to Jeffrey in New York City. Jeffrey, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? I have a question. This is not anything on the contemporary scene. I'm reading Lutez's book, and there's something in there where he wins his first NWA title, but there's a dispute that's saying that it may have been the Missouri Championship, but he hasn't explained what the controversy is. Do you think you could shed some light on that?
Do you mean the Everett Marshall match?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Well, the NWA wasn't formed until 1948 or 49.
Well, not the NWA title, but the first title that was considered a world title.
I mean, there were a lot of different world titles, but that was considered one of the major world titles. Yeah, that he won. It was I don't know if at the time it was the #1 world title, but it was certainly among the top world titles.
Okay.
So I mean, it wasn't like it was some rinky-dink title or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question. Back in the 1800s when the carnies, when they started doing hooks, in the book, he never mentions how did he learn these hooks? I mean, I know, some wrestlers...
Probably trial and error.
Yeah, at the very beginning, you develop them by just,
You fight, and then all of a sudden you find something that works, and then you just keep doing it, and you refine the technique.
They didn't learn it from anything like judo or jiu-jitsu?
Well, I mean, judo and jiu-jitsu all came from the same, they all came from the same thing. Yeah, I mean, they were judo tactics, they were submission wrestling tactics, they're all... you can label them whatever you want, but they were all learned by trial and error in competition, I would guess.
Think about pro wrestling now. Think of the moves now that were not done 10 years ago and how they were developed. Just guys fooling around and, maybe I can put this dude's head here and do this or that, and you just develop new stuff.
So that comes to my next question. If guys like the great technicians, the great shooters at the time, like Danny Hodge and Ed Strangler Lewis and Frank Gotch, I guess, if they were in today's world, in today's times with the moves that they learned at that time, they probably lose to some of the greats like Kurt Angle in a real match.
It all depends on the rules and what you're experienced at. Kurt Angle's not a submission wrestler. Kurt Angle in a freestyle wrestling match would beat...
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, not hooks.
Yeah, Kurt Angle in a freestyle wrestling match would beat any of those people. Some people will argue Danny Hodge, okay, because Danny Hodge was a freak. He was just way ahead of his time. But Kurt Angle, you're still talking about a guy who is probably 25... Let's see, Danny Hodge's wrestling weight was 175. Kurt's was about 220. So you're talking about a 35-pound difference, and you're talking about 40 years of evolution later. That's pretty tough.
Kurt Angle said about the guys today as compared to 96.
Yeah, and Kurt Angle couldn't beat the guys today. 6 years after he was the best in the world. So, Danny Hodge was a freak, though. Danny Hodge, when he was a lot older and doing professional wrestling, he'd go in the gym and he'd eat up, Jack Briscoes and people like that were bigger guys than him, that were younger than him. So, I would say he would probably be competitive as far as freestyle wrestling. Strangler Lewis, I don't think so. I think that it would be you're just talking about too many years. Frank Gotch, too many years. Now, if you're talking about submission wrestling, Kurt has no experience at that. They might be able to beat him at that because it's their own game. My thought has always been if Kurt trained at submission wrestling, eventually he'd be able to beat them as well, just because more modern athlete. That's all.
They said, actually in the Classic Wrestling Superstars, they were talking about this. They had I was taping some matches, and they said, I think Jack Briscoe was doing commentating, and he said, if Danny Hodge was in UFC today, he'd dominate the competition. Do you think that's relevant? Do you think that's true?
At 170, if Danny Hodge could get to 170
in his class, in his
weight class, I think it would be very difficult for anybody to beat Danny Hodge. Just because.
What about Matt Linden? You think he'd?
Matt Lindland, I don't think so because Danny Hodge was a better boxer than Matt Lindland, and even if Matt Lindland, because of the evolution and everything, is a better wrestler now than Danny Hodge. Which he probably really is, although every Danny Hodge fan will kill me for that. The bottom line is that Danny Hodge was also a good boxer. It would be, he could probably fall victim to a submission because he never really trained like these guys do at avoiding submissions. But if he had good coaching, the thing with Danny Hodge also is that if he was around now, my feeling is that, he would know today's techniques. And at his weight, God, he'd be pretty tough to beat. No one is impossible to beat, but boy, he'd be tough. I don't dispute that. Just at his weight with the right training, even today, boy, that guy, again, because he was a freak.
That would be a dream match, though, Cael Sanderson and Danny Hodge, because they're both undefeated.
Boy, Cael Sanderson and Danny Hodge. Cael Sanderson's 15 pounds heavier. The thing with Danny Hodge is that he had a genetic gift of strength.
He also has never taken off his feet, so that's...
He was never taken down in collegiate competition, which Cael Sanderson was, but, Cael Sanderson is an awesome wrestler, and he's quicker than Danny Hodge ever was. Not stronger, but quicker, and better much better technically, so, it's hard to say. I would say that the modern guy would win, though. As far as just pure wrestling, if it was a UFC match, I would think Danny Hodge with his boxing background would beat Cael Sanderson with no boxing experience.
Obviously. One last quick question. This was about something you wrote with Andre Miyata.
Akira Maeda?
Yeah, Akira Maeda.
Yeah.
How come pro wrestlers who've been in the rings with Andre say he's the toughest guy they've ever been in? Because
he's so big and scary, and you look at him, you go, what the hell can I do with him?
They didn't try and shoot on him. They just assumed that if they did, he would kill them.
He looks too scary. If you saw somebody, if I saw Kurt Angle, okay, and I saw the Big Show, and they're both mad at me, I would probably be more scared at the Big Show than at Kurt Angle, even though I know full well that if they were in like a wrestling match, Kurt Angle would destroy the guy, and the Big Show would tire out fast. But there's something about being in with somebody who's that much bigger and who is, with the giant wrists and the giant hands, who's that much stronger, that's very intimidating. But the reality is that, the best fighters are the guys who've been tested and fought the toughest competition. And Andre was not a fighter, even though, he was a huge, strong guy, though. But again, like with Maeda, he took him down at will. Maeda took the guy down at will. He was kicking him to death. It exposed everything that everybody believed about Andre the Giant, but they still believed it afterwards anyway because they couldn't accept that story, basically. Even though it happened.
That's true.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're very welcome. We got Bruce Mitchell on the line. Bruce, what's going on?
Hey guys, how's your Sunday?
Sunday's doing great. We've got full bank of calls, and we've got all kinds of interesting questions, as you probably just heard that last call.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. One of the great things about that question is you never really know the answer.
Yeah.
That type of question.
Yeah, but everyone's got an opinion, and I sure have mine.
Definitely.
But in any sport, that you can compare things, logically, like whether it's running or swimming or anything, the modern guys blow away the guys from the past. And wrestling technically has evolved so much, since the 50s that, a freestyle champion of the 50s is not going to beat at the same weight a freestyle champion of today. Now, if they were. But again, if those guys were brought up with the same training techniques, that's another ball game too. There's so many variables.
Yeah, definitely. The old guys didn't have the foundation that the young guys have, and the old guys helped build that foundation.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as professional wrestling workers. Some people will, if you look at something from the 60s, especially if a modern fan looks at something from the 60s, and they'll go, all the hot moves that we see in pro wrestling, none of them are there.
That's right.
But you can't judge those guys negatively based on that because they were entertaining the fans of the 60s. They were not putting on a match for the fans of 2003.
Well, also there's the part about the work-style pro wrestling that is telling a story, and the people in the 60s understood their style, told their story. People, in 2000 understand it, but you got to go by, to me at the very end of the day, you've got to go by how many fans wanted to buy tickets to see it.
Oh, that was a scary one there for the modern guys. They're not looking too good, although they were looking great 3 years ago or 2 years ago. But anyway, we got to go ahead to a break right now. We're back with more with Bruce Mitchell, the Pro Wrestling Torch, and Bryan as well, and taking your phone calls right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bruce Mitchell from the Pro Wrestling Torch. We've got to give you a regular introduction. Bruce is, like one of the longest-lasting pro wrestling columnists.
I believe the word is old.
Like 15 years, right? 14 years?
Somewhere in there.
God, a long time. Has written some of the best articles I've ever read on pro wrestling. Actually, in fact, he actually wrote the best article I've ever read on pro wrestling on Bryan Hildebrand a little bit before he died. But anyway, Bruce, yesterday and today, I have really come to the conclusion that the professional wrestling world has lost its mind, collectively. And I'm not just talking about Sean Stasiak. I just think this industry has lost its way, lost its mind.
Well, it seems like they don't know how to hype themselves anymore. I mean, you and I talked about off the air, but what Antonio Inoki and Shinla said at the New Japan show, it's just like they go out and talk about how their product stinks, and they just don't know what to say about anything anymore. Yeah, I mean,
it's funny, like, when did somebody think it was a good idea? I mean, WCW used to do that, and look where they are, but where you go on the air and say, boy, this product is really boring, and think that that's, like, beneficial somehow.
Yeah, I know. But don't worry, we're going to fix it in about 6 months, but in the meantime, don't spend any money on it.
I think that's what they really think, is they think, well, we'll tell you that it sucks, and we're going to turn it around, and this will make people tune in to see the turnaround.
It hasn't worked.
It makes no sense, but
how about last night on Velocity when Ernest the Cat Miller said that a martial artist will always beat a wrestler on a wrestling television show?
Well, I know that's got to just give you a lot of confidence. I mean, it's just the dumbest, in what you're watching, the dumbest things. Like, you're interested in pro wrestling as a fan, so you're taking your time to watch it on television, and their own commentator tells you you're a fool.
Okay, but okay, now, okay, granted, but this begets even a deeper question. Okay, Ernest Miller said that. Okay, it was taped. This was not done live. It got on the air, and more importantly, why is Ernest Miller an announcer? Because literally, he got that tryout on SmackDown when Taz had to go home because his wife was ill. Okay, and he was horrible. So usually, you try out someone for a job and they're really horrible. You don't hire them. I mean, do you?
Well, that gives you an idea of what the people in WWE think of their talent. I mean, people must have thought that Ernest Miller did a good job. What does that tell you?
What does that tell you? I know. Unbelievable. You know what's funny is that I didn't, on the internet or anywhere, I never read one person who thought, you know what, they booked the Invasion too. Okay, that answers my question. All right. I'll tell you one thing, listening to some of those commercials, like, the athletes may be bigger and stronger and faster than before, but you know what? Primetime television is not better than it was in the 70s.
But yeah. Well, on the other hand, you had 3 stations instead of. Brian doesn't remember this, but
I was going to say 3 stations.
You had 3 networks.
3 networks. We didn't have 3 stations.
3 networks, maybe 3 or 4 stations back in the 70s, and that was about it. And you had your USA station. What I'm trying to say is, you didn't have as many slots to fill in. There's just not enough talented people. I think that's the way in wrestling in some ways. There's just not enough talented people to fill up what they've got to fill up on television.
No, I think that it's bad. What's the word I'm looking for? I think that it's bad hiring, because you cannot tell me that they couldn't take a guy off the street and make him better than Ernest the Cat Miller.
A guy off of
Oh, how about like some of those guys that Mauro Ranallo up in Calgary or somebody like that who they don't even know. I mean, somebody like that. Those guys, they're good. I mean, there are good announcers out there if they searched. But they probably
thought that what might have fueled the Eric Bischoff rumor that Vince had gotten so desperate and so out of touch he was willing to give up creative control of Raw to Eric Bischoff was the fact that the only logical reason you can come up with for Ernest Miller having a job with the World Wrestling Entertainment is that his buddy Eric got him in, because that was the only logical reason that he got such a big push in WCW.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Monday about the Owen Hart piece?
I thought it was inappropriate. I mean, I just thought that there's a time to remember Owen Hart, and there's even a time to show those clips, but it's not as part of a celebration of the entertaining moments of Raw, and that's what those spots are meant to be. You know, they had the spot where Steve Austin busted up Vince McMahon's Corvette and all that kind of stuff, and it was supposed to be entertaining moments that we all look back on, or that Raw fans look back on, and instead it sort of turned what was one of wrestling's biggest tragedies into just another moment, and I really didn't like that. I thought also it was very uncomfortable to see, having watched Jeff Jarrett just speak on live television about how, I'm not on live television, but on an interview about how, with Mike Tenay, about how he didn't think there was a place to talk about Owen Hart on a wrestling show, and of course a wrestling show in there, they were using his own words on that show. I just thought it was, everything is grist for the mill with the WWE, and that can be lead to some very uncomfortable moments.
The other part of that, I'll tell you, that I didn't like is that the way that was presented, okay, and let's get Terry and Coach, it's almost like, like the self-congratulation thing, about like, look at this great television show that we produced. It's one of everyone's favorite TV shows. But it was also, I felt that they were pushing to get people to vote for that as their favorite Raw moment, so they can make a bigger deal out of it on the 14th.
Right, and also they're still sensitive about the idea that they have some culpability in the negligence that led to Owen Hart's death, and if they can get people to really go, oh, what a great celebration of that, that idea that's in wrestling now that Owen just died in some sort of accident that couldn't have been avoided is strengthened, and I think that's a bad thing. It was what it was. There's a reason why they paid that huge settlement, and it wasn't because they were just really nice.
Well, one of the things, when you get off that subject, my problem with it was not so much that, of what happened to cause Owen Hart's death, but the company's reaction after Owen Hart's death. It's like, you can go in there and just go, we're all family, and Owen was part of our family too. But it's like, once he was dead, they sure did not treat Owen Hart's family like it was family. They treated Owen Hart's family like they were the enemies, and at any cost necessary, they were going to win their fight. And I don't blame them for doing that in a sense, because that's what a corporation does, when they're sued. But that means that they aren't a family. They are a corporation that was doing whatever it could to defend itself, and that's all.
Well, that's true. You've got that level going on, and you've also got the level of they're an entertainment corporation that wants their fans to feel nice and comfy about what they're watching in certain ways, and they didn't want. So they had to have the propaganda front, then they had to have the legal front. Those are two different things, and it made me very uncomfortable the whole way. I'll put it like that. I just think there was a time for that, and also, I gave them a pass in certain ways the day after, because everybody's in shock. They've got a 2-hour Raw show to do. They've got to acknowledge it. What did they do? Well, they did what they did for those 2 hours, and there are parts that were kind of inappropriate, and there are parts that were very appropriate. Mick Foley and Jared and some other people talking, and they did an all right job. But 3 years later to go back and go, woo, wasn't this entertaining? Wasn't this great? And you're right, Jonathan Coachman and the grinning Jonathan Coachman and Terry, who's better than Ernest Miller, but not by a long shot, out there just kind of putting together a clip show. Just really wasn't that great.
Anything you want to add to this, Bryan?
I was just, I watched it with some friends, and the whole thing with them is, it's almost like when you used to watch wrestling and you wanted to suspend your disbelief. I think that these people, and these were people that read newsletters and sort of knew at least enough of the story, and to them, it was almost like they didn't want to believe that this should not have been done. You know what I mean? Because it was about Owen, this guy that they liked, and they just kind of sat there and were very quiet, and then it was over, and that was that. It was very strange to watch.
Yeah, especially because they went out of their way to make sure not to hype it so nobody could say they were doing it for ratings. And they weren't doing it for ratings. They were doing it because they thought that it was one of the great moments of Raw, and I think that the company wants it to win the greatest moment of Raw, which I think would be their affirmation that after all those years and all the controversy about that show, as sort of their proof in the end that they did a good job on that day.
Yeah.
That's how I read it anyway. We are going to go to Alan in Deerfield Beach. Alan, what's going on?
Hey, Dave. On the heels of what you just said, I was going to ask you, is Bret Hart going to be at the anniversary show?
No.
He's not?
No, he's not.
And I wanted to ask you, do you feel that the sentiments of Hunter Hearst Helmsley was authentic? Because there was some.
Everybody, and I mean, people know. Like people know that when Owen was alive, Steve Austin did not like Owen Hart. But right. I believe that the sentiments of everyone was pretty authentic. I mean, maybe one or two people questionable.
Hunter. That's what I'm saying,
Hunter. Yeah, I mean, that's the day after a guy died that you worked with. I'm sure he was sad. I think he was authentic. I mean, he wasn't Owen's best friend. He didn't go out there and say I was.
Okay.
I'm not going to knock anything that he did. No.
And I also wanted to know, what do you know about the status of Stone Cold Steve Austin? Speaking of the devil.
I expect him back. I mean, I don't know when. I'll tell you what. With this hype for the Raw anniversary special, which was on the 14th. Mm-hmm. They almost, Bruce, don't you think that if they don't bring back Steve Austin on that show, people are going to be disappointed because they're not bringing back Bret Hart?
Well, they had that spot on Monday Night Show where they said, who is the biggest star of the Raw years or something like that.
Well, the answer to that's Steve Austin.
And that's Steve Austin, and so that brings up the thought, that raises the expectation that they're going to have a segment on the biggest star of the Raw years. So you'd have to expect, if you're a fan just kind of sitting at home not knowing the ins and outs of it, you'd expect him to be there. So I think they've raised that expectation. Now, it's not beyond the World Wrestling Federation to raise an expectation and not follow through and try to get the rating out of it. But I would. It's going to hurt them if he's not there. I mean,
I think I think that they at least need Steve Austin or Rock and one other star. They don't need both of them, and one other star that people haven't seen in a long time.
It's almost kind of weird, though, with Austin, though. I mean, he's been gone for so long, and his return is going to be at WWE New York.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's the wrong place for the return, but the way they've hyped that show, they have to have somebody there.
Yeah, it would better be Rock.
Yeah, well, Rock would be better. Yeah, I agree. If it was up to me, it'd be Rock. Because if it was up to me, I would not put Austin on that show, but I also know that people are going to be disappointed if because I think the two people that everyone expects on that show are Steve Austin and Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And Heenan, Heenan will be nice, but that's not the key. That's not a key guy.
Yeah, by the way, saying that the Owen Hart thing was winning the poll on the website a few days ago.
Yeah, well, I expected it would.
So.
Yeah.
Do you think Hunter's going over against Steiner? I mean, his political poll is.
I think that it depends on who's hurt the least on the day of the show. And who
hasn't hurt anything? Who
needs surgery? Who's going to need surgery quicker?
Steiner's not really working out that well at house shows. I mean.
Well, in the ring, he's not. He's getting big pops, but in the ring, I mean, his wrestling, he gets tired really, really fast, and he hasn't had good matches. And Hunter's not having good matches either.
Because of the foot or the back or whatever.
And lack of stamina and everything. The back, yeah.
Ring rust or whatever.
All those things, all the above, yeah. Alan, we got to go ahead to a break, okay? We will be back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bruce Mitchell of the Pro Wrestling Report. We have one phone line open at 1-800-878-PLAY, so you can jump aboard that right now, and we'll be, of course, here for another hour. We're going to go to Joe in Worcester, Massachusetts. Joe, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Doing really good.
Okay, I got a question for you. I read your 01 review in this week's Observer, and do they have a heavyweight title?
No, they do not.
Because they use the NWA heavyweight title, right?
That's what they've been using, yeah.
Oh, then TNA kind of, I guess, took that away from them.
Yeah, although Jeff Jarrett was on the show and he did bring the belt with him, but since TNA started, they have not had a NWA title match. I think the last guy I think that held the title that went there as champion, I think, was Dan Severn.
Oh.
When Dan Severn beat Shinya Hashimoto in that horrid match. I don't know if you guys ever saw that match, but that was one of the worst matches of the year.
Are they going to do anything about that, or are they going to use the tag title as the top belt?
It looks like they're. I think they want to use the NWA title because it's got that old history, and they kind of want to be like a 1970s style wrestling company.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they would like to do that if Jarrett will come.
Oh.
Yeah.
And when Tiger Mask 4 signed with New Japan, did Sasuke receive any compensation for that, or?
I don't know.
I don't know whether he was in financial trouble and was looking.
I mean, Tiger Mask has been wrestling full time for New Japan for a long time. He just, so I think it's been on some sort of a loan. And I'm guessing that they had paid, Michinoku Pro something. So, as far as the rights to use him for this whole last year anyway, since he was under contract to the other guys. So they may have bought some sort of rights from him, but I don't know that to be, for sure.
Okay, last thing. Did you see the Chono-Nagata 60-minute match?
Yes.
Oh, what'd you think?
It was a lot better than I expected it to be.
Oh.
It wasn't slow, it wasn't boring, and it was very good. I wouldn't go like match of the year, and I don't rate it as high as a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was, for Masahiro Chono, to do a 60-minute match. Yuji Nagata's a great wrestler. You can't take that away from him, and he can carry guys, and that was one of his better performances. Okay?
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, very welcome. All right, we are headed to our hourly break. We're back with Bruce Mitchell and, of course, Bryan Alvarez, second hour, talking about whatever you want to talk about in the world of pro wrestling. You can hop on board on the phone lines as well, and we'll see you right after the news. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on! Get it on!
Okay, welcome back to the second hour here on Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And for those of you wondering, the replay of this show will continue to air in the same time slot, even though we moved up the live show a couple of hours. The replay will be from 6 to 8 a.m. Eastern Time every Monday morning. So for those of you who usually listen on the replay or are listening now and occasionally listen to the replay, we'll have all that information up on the web as well. And let's see. Another subject we have not talked about is Tank Abbott against Frank Mir, February the 28th, which is the next UFC. And I also want to run down a couple pay-per-view dates coming up. Let's see. January the 8th will be the next NWA TNA. This coming Wednesday, the next NWA TNA pay-per-view. The only two matches that have been announced are the New Church against America's Most Wanted in their final match ever. And remember the last time there was a final match ever? They had a rematch 2 weeks later. And Jason Cross against Sonny Siaki for the X Division Championship. And I don't know. Those are the only two matches I know. The show's on Wednesday. And I know that there's going to be some surprises. So, anyway.
Good.
Yep. I don't know what they are. Let's see. Then on the 11th will be, which is Saturday night, there will be a tape of the December 23rd Pride show. January 19th, of course, is the Royal Rumble from Boston, which is actually traditionally the second biggest show of the year behind WrestleMania.
Have you seen the Pride show yet, by the way?
I have the tape at home. I have not. I'm gonna actually watch it tonight when I get home.
Okay.
Yeah, the December 30th. I'm looking forward to the December 31st Pride show, which will not be airing in the United States.
You mean the Inoki show?
Yeah, the Bob Sapp Takayama show. More to see Mirko Cro Cop and Fujita.
Yeah.
I spent like that the 30th, so I guess that was Monday night. I stayed up all night listening to that thing. I had a friend who was there live, who was like giving me like English blow by blow. Knee, another knee. How many knees is that? 11. It was so much fun. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to do that one again.
Wait till I get your phone bill.
Yeah, I know. I think I may do that for the what's it called? For the when they do the tournament at the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
And then let's see, February 2nd, there's going to be a Japanese hardcore wrestling pay-per-view, and February the 9th is going to be the Sting Lex Luger match. So those of you who have not seen Lex Luger wrestle in a year and a half, which is just about all of us, if you really want to see him, you got a chance on February the 9th to watch Lex Luger blow up really fast and win the WWA title from Sting and all that. Anyway, we're going to come back with your phone calls right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bruce Mitchell of the Pro Wrestling Torch. And we're going to be here every 2 hours, every Sunday for 2 hours from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Wanted to get to a couple of topics, and we're going to go back to the phone calls. Bryan, what are your thoughts on Tank Abbott and Frank Mir from a business standpoint? And then who do you think is going to win?
I don't think that will sell one ticket to my... Actually, you know what? It will, just because it's Tank Abbott. But there are matches that would have made more money than that one.
Do you think he's got a chance?
No.
Okay.
I think he's got a chance, but a very slim one.
Okay. I don't know who's going to win Wrestler of the Year this year, but there should be an award this year for the all-time greatest wrestler over the age of 50 this year. Don't you think? Tenryu, absolutely. Bruce, have you watched some Tenryu matches this year?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, unbelievable for considering his age. I mean, he's the same age as Ric Flair, basically.
He's amazing. No, I mean, he's still consistent. He's so smart in how he works, and athletically, he's got something left.
I don't know how he does. I don't know how his body holds together, because he took a lot of bumps and he worked a hard style.
He sure did. I mean, look at what the people who worked that style with him and where they are now.
They're dead.
I think that every young wrestler should watch Tenryu. I remember writing that when I watched the Tenryu Muda match, thinking that maybe a lot of it was Muda. I'm sure a lot of it was, but I'm a huge Tenryu fan now after watching a bunch of his matches the last few days. Yeah. Everybody should watch that man.
Did you see the Kojima match from?
Yes, I did.
That match may have been the best match this year.
Yeah, that was so awesome.
Yeah. Well, it is Kojima, who's an awesome wrestler too.
Well, see, second place would be Flair, third place would be Hogan. No, Hogan's not 50 yet.
No, it'd be
third place would be Vince McMahon.
An honorary.
Starts to go down. Starts to go down pretty fast.
Nick Bockwinkel. Anyway, we're going to go to Tom in Atlanta. Tom, what's going on?
Hey, a couple of questions.
Yes.
I saw in Confidential that next week they're doing a Four Horsemen retrospective.
Yes, they are.
And Tully Blanchard is being interviewed. I was wondering, he's not employed by the WWE in any way, is he?
No, but they're going to talk. I mean, when they did the plane crash thing, they had David Crockett on.
Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
Is he still? Are he and Arn still I guess on the outs?
I don't know. I don't know what's going. I haven't heard anything about that in years. So I don't know.
Because
anybody's close.
I guess Arn came out with his book a couple of years ago, and I guess he was still really pissed at him.
Yeah, they were mad because Tully revealed a lot of stuff that they thought he shouldn't have revealed. But
right.
Now I think since everyone knows that it was all true, that whatever.
Second question. I read your review, Dave, of Jerry Lawler's book.
Bruce hated that book. I just want everyone to know this. Bruce hated that book.
I really did.
Why?
I loved I loved all the stuff about Memphis. That was a lot of fun to read. I wish there'd been more of it, frankly, but I really enjoyed it. But when it got down to this 53-year-old guy, I guess he would go on that list too. I'd put him ahead of Vince McMahon. A 53-year-old guy.
I would put Jim Ross ahead of Vince McMahon. Huh? Jim Ross. He wrestled on the Christmas show.
Jim Ross.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, anyway, just to read about how this poor guy, all of a sudden he's a celebrity. He thinks he's supposed to get underage girls. His entire life, not underage girls, but pretty for 53 years old, I'd say underage. 20-year-old girls and 19-year-old girls his entire life, and then all of a sudden the well runs dry, and he can't understand why that happened, and to just read about him striking out again and again, I really felt sorry.
He really looked.
I thought he was pathetic. I mean, I really was creeped out by it. I just thought it was pathetic, and I thought that he couldn't see what the situation was with Stacey Carter, and I'm sure he thought.
No, he still doesn't see it.
And he still doesn't see it, and it was love that a 40-something-year-old man, and I'm a 40-something-year-old man right now, got up with a 17-year-old girl and put her on TV, and then at some point she left him, and he thought it was love. It boggles my mind. I mean, it really does. And he's gone from a guy that I just thought was going to was ahead of the game the entire way to a guy that's very much behind the game. And I didn't feel sorry for him, but I was really creeped out by him. I mean, he had no self-knowledge of what kind of person he was to me at all. And it's not that wrestlers are good for that, but I mean, his was the worst by far.
Dave?
Yes.
Am I to understand from your review that Jerry slept with Tammy Sitch right out of high school?
No, I think no, he wanted to, but I don't think he.
That was his plan.
That was his plan. That's why Chris Candido got his job in Memphis. I don't know that he ever did. Yes, but he admitted that in the book. That he admitted that him and Dennis Coralluzzo.
That was the plan. I just didn't know whether the plan went through.
I don't know as a fact if it didn't. Okay,
I understood it was someone else completed the plan.
Well. Okay.
Well, actually, a lot of people completed the plan.
Okay.
But that's another thing.
Don't forget to mention the upcoming HBO special Smashing Machine.
Oh, awesome. You must see that. Yes.
And I'm just going to watch it just for Bryan's depiction of that wrestler's girlfriend is kind of like Sable 2 is just like this harpy that...
She's not Sable 2. She's totally different than Sable. Dawn Staples.
Right.
She's just... Dawn Staples.
Swingy?
No, that's not the word. Dawn Staples, you really do have to watch that movie to see Dawn Staples. I mean, it's a very interesting girlfriend.
And I think everybody has known somebody like Mark Kerr with a girlfriend like Dawn Staples.
No, nobody. You guys do not. No one has known anybody like Mark Kerr.
Well, maybe not exactly, but
everyone has known a girlfriend like Dawn Staples, but no, Mark Kerr is a unique person.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, have a good day.
Okay, you're very welcome. Yeah, definitely want to bring that up. That's the 12th, so that's this coming Saturday night on HBO. Go out of your way to see that one. That's I don't know, best movie on this thing in well, I don't know, in a little while. I don't know. Reversal actually, which is totally different because that's a feature film. That was actually better.
I think I like the Mark Kerr film better.
Than Reversal? Really?
Maybe just because I'm not I don't have a family. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, Reversal was just so awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Dennis in Kirksville, Missouri. Dennis, what's going on?
Hey, Dave.
Hey.
Got 3 quick questions. First of all, you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier right after I got on hold, but I read on your site this weekend about the Andre the Giant match in Japan. I've never seen it. I was just wondering what happened, why did it happen, and what was supposed to happen?
I don't know what was supposed to happen, but this is what happened. Okay, it was 1986. And Akira Maeda in 1984, he had gone with this promotion called the UWF, and their big gimmick was that, we're real. We're doing real matches, which they weren't. They were doing stiffer worked matches. But he was trained by Carl Gotch, and he was a, pretty tough guy. And he had a rep, he kind of was, I don't know how to. He I don't want to say he bullied people, but he sometimes did. He did bully people. I should say that. Okay. So anyway, they talked to Andre, and basically they told Andre, you better, they wanted Andre to kind of humble the guy, because everybody figured, Andre could humble the guy. So Andre went in there, and he was kind of drunk, and he went in there to humble the guy, and he didn't get the job done, and he ended up getting really, really tired. And it turned into a shoot. Andre started it, not Maeda, which is actually contrary to what most people think the story is, because Maeda has started in almost all the other occasions. But in this one, Andre was going for Maeda's eyes. Andre was no-selling Maeda's moves. And finally, Maeda realized that, this is a very dangerous situation, and I better fight back. And so he got on his feet and got in like this karate stance, and started kicking Andre in the knee. And Andre could do nothing about it because Andre had no reflexes. He was too slow. And kicking him in the knee. And then he started going, he got a little bit more guts, and he started going for a takedown on Andre. And Andre had no balance. And Maeda took him down about 3 times, and Andre, because his knee was killing him, and because he was out of shape, he couldn't get back up to his feet. And Maeda's standing there over this guy who's laying on the ground, can't do anything, and he's looking at the corner and going, this guy tried to take my eye out, now can I finish him? And they all shook their head, no, you can't. So he just kind of stood there and didn't know what to do. And finally, Inoki came into the ring and just said, okay, this is over. And Maeda threw this kick at the guardrail, and it was the greatest kick he ever did in his life. I mean, he just destroyed that guardrail. It was one of the kicks I'm sure he wanted to give Andre when all was said and done. And that's what happened, and it never aired on television in Japan ever until last night, believe it or not, after 16 years. And they put it on the air last night. So that's the story.
My 2 other questions are about current wrestling. First of all, I assume that Vince's hope for WrestleMania is that he has The Rock, Steve Austin, Bill Goldberg, maybe Hogan. Of course, they've already got Steiner in there. Is that kind of where
I got the impression no Hogan, but I think that they sure want everybody else, yeah.
Okay, here's my question. After WrestleMania is over, you've got all these main event guys. What do you do with them?
Well, I don't think they'll all be around. But, hey, I'd rather have that problem than the problem they got now, which is every main eventer's hurt and none of them are over.
And my final question is for all you guys. The Michaels Triple H Armageddon match really kind of disturbed me, because I'm wondering if wrestling isn't a little bit, hasn't gotten to the point where it's almost too real. Because you saw in the first fall, I think it was Michaels hit Triple H with a flaming barbed wire board, and then 10 seconds later, Triple H gets the pin. Then you have Michaels diving off the top of a cage through tables, and they both get up and fight again. And I'm just wondering, do you guys think that wrestling has almost become too real?
Brian, what do we should tackle? Well, actually, Brian, tackle this one right when we come back, because we got to hit a break right now, okay?
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, so we'll get back to that subject right after this break. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bruce Mitchell of the Pro Wrestling Torch. If you want information on how to subscribe to the Wrestling Observer newsletter or Figure 4 Weekly, you can go anytime to www.wrestlingobserver.com. There's also updated news items every day and a lot of features throughout the week, TV reviews and all that, and as well as information on how to get Figure 4, which, believe me, you want to get, and Wrestling Observer newsletter, which you probably want to get as well. And Bruce writes for Pro Wrestling Torch, and you can go to pwtorch.com, and there's info on that. He basically more writes VIP stuff. I don't see much of your stuff on the web these days.
Yeah, it's kind of trending that way, but that may change. We'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Brian, style of wrestling, the Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Shawn Michaels match, where the guys did those big moves and then got right up and continued for another match.
That actually, his question confused me because he was asking if it's more real, and what they were doing was very not real. So, but I mean, the one thing is, it's not so much in WWE, but it's on the Indies and even like TNA and stuff like that. Where, to me, it's almost too real in that wrestling is fake. And I know some people will get very upset when I say that, but it is not real. And I don't understand, some of these guys go in there and they kick each other as hard as they can. And, you know, I hear people do interviews where they go, you know, if you can't take it, you shouldn't be in pro wrestling and all this and that. And my whole thing is, you know what, today there is an alternative. It's called UFC, and it's called Pride. And if you really want to kick someone in the head as hard as you can, then there's that, you know, there's that option for you. And I just look at it like, I would rather people learn how to throw a really great worked punch that fooled everybody in the crowd into thinking that they had really punched a person than to watch somebody really punch another guy in the head. Because I just don't understand the point of it, and I don't know, I hate it.
Okay, well, that's something different. I mean, like, you know, one of the things that I used to hear when guys would do a lot of big moves and get up from them, the old-timers would go, that's not realistic. But, and you know, my argument always was, but if they can get up from them, then actually it's more realistic.
Yeah, it's like, okay, here's an example from an old All Japan match where Misawa takes a German suplex and lands right on top of his head and hops right back up. Okay? Well, Misawa really did land right on his head on that German suplex, and he really did hop right back up, which tells me it's possible to do that, so that does not look fake.
Yeah.
Something like getting hit with a barbed wire board on fire and then hopping right up afterwards, that does look fake. But, I mean, it's like you watch Tenryu, and Tenryu's gimmick is almost that he undersells. I mean, he takes a punch right to the face, and he almost doesn't even flinch. And that's part of the gimmick, that he's this tough old man. And if you're a tough old man, then you can take a jab to the face and maybe not flinch, and so that's realistic. But it just all depends on the context. And, you know, going through tables, you can go through a table and not get hurt, so that's one thing. But the barbed wire board, that's something totally different.
Brian, I don't know if you heard this or not, but, you know, Shawn actually did get hurt in that match.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's hurting really bad. He's not going to do any more matches for a couple months.
Wow.
Yeah.
From the table, or?
I don't know which spot, but it was from doing that match. So he hurt himself. So that match, you know, wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
If you hurt yourself, and I mean, the injury rate, that's the key to this whole thing, is the injury rate of wrestling is out of control. People should not be getting hurt. You know, there's always going to be guys getting hurt, but it shouldn't be as much as probably they are right now.
Well, here's another thing, too. For guys that are working the indies, and maybe you get a show a week or 2 shows a week, and you're going in there and you're getting kicked full force, and you're kicking guys full force and all this, and you can survive that, that's great, but what's going to happen when you have to go? I'm sure their goal, most of them, is to go to WWE. And what's going to happen when they get there and they're working 4 nights a week? A, they wouldn't be able to do that, and B, they're going to be told that they cannot do that. So why not work on a style that maybe you're going to have to use someday?
I got another one for you. This was pretty interesting. I was watching Tough Enough on Thursday. And you know, Steve Regal, William Regal, and Triple H have said, you know, that they think that Tough Enough is hurting the business. Now, I don't think Tough Enough is hurting the business. But I saw something on Tough Enough, okay? And it was the guys doing the moonsault practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, I've been told by so many wrestlers, I know that the moonsault is not really that difficult to move. When you get up there with your back facing and you jump off, generally speaking, you're either going to land on your head or more naturally, you're going to land on your chest, and you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay? However, when guys do moonsaults in the ring, whether it was Kurt Angle or Big Van Vader or Keiji Muto or anyone who did them, Owen Hart, people are always in awe. What a beautiful move, okay? And to me, when they showed those trainees, how many people were left? 5 or 6? I think 5 were left at that point. Five were left at that point because I think they cut Justin before they did the moonsaults. Every one of them hit it perfect. Not perfect, but everyone hit the moonsault on their first opportunity. To me, it was just like these freaking amateurs can do a moonsault with on the first time they go up there, they hit it. I mean, who the hell cares about that move? I mean, that was really my reaction, and I thought that should not have been on the air. And maybe I'm stupid, but I was real strong on that one.
Well, I also think that part of it is just that high flying has advanced so much that the moonsault really isn't anything anymore. I mean, it could be if you protected it, but they don't, so, you know.
Well, I think that's one of the keys. I mean, if you protect a move and portray it on your television like it really means something, whether it's, you know, a punch to the groin or a moonsault or a submission move, then it can get over the fans if you do it over and over and over again. But what I really do object to is these moves, and you see it on NWA TNA and you see it in indie shows, where they do a spectacular move and the guy gets right back up and they do another spectacular move and then another spectacular move and it means nothing in the context of the match. And, if you're going to kick somebody as hard as you can, that should be something that's built up to climatically, not just, last indie show I went to a couple of weeks ago, second match on the card, two guys did just these horrible-looking dives into tables and I was just, why? Why would you do that? And the crowd didn't pop for them. The crowd was all right, because it didn't mean anything. It didn't build up anywhere. And I'm sure those guys were hurt. It's just a matter of taking these things out of context, too. I've never seen anybody in a fight with a 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire set on fire that hit anybody else with it. And I've never heard of that in a fight. So is that realistic? No. Is it realistic for these guys to get up? No, not at all.
We really need Jim Cornette on the show when we're discussing this because I know he would just go insane.
Yes, he would. And if he saw that Tough Enough segment, he'd have been really insane. Let's go to Michael in the Bronx. Michael, what's up?
Hey, Dave. How you doing tonight?
Doing really good.
Do you know the real reason why Mitsuya Nagai left All Japan?
To go to New Japan. He started at the Tokyo Dome as the fifth masked man, and they said they're going to end up with 10 of them. He just got a better offer from New Japan, that's all.
All right, and for the February New Japan lineups, they got Christopher Daniels listed for, every show?
I didn't even hear that, but I'm not surprised.
Okay, you think they're going to sign him?
If he's going to be on every show, they're going to probably work on getting him, yeah. They must have been, he's where he worked some of the big shows last year, so I guess they liked. He does real well over there.
I think they said Liger was interested in him after the top of the Super Juniors last year.
I don't doubt it. He's a good worker.
All right, cool. And finally, did you read the Bite This report about Kevin Nash mentioning Razor Ramon?
Yes.
What do you think? Is Kevin Nash being Kevin Nash?
Kevin Nash is being Kevin Nash. He's going to keep that guy's name alive forever because when Kevin Nash stands on his own, he has a whole lot less charisma than when he stands next to Scott Hall.
Exactly. All right, thanks for taking my call.
Okay, very welcome. I'll tell you what, I'm scared of Kevin Nash coming back. That's an injury that a lot of guys don't come back from that are younger.
Yeah.
And look at Triple H. Granted, his was a little bit worse than Kevin's, but he never came back from it.
Yeah. That also reminds me, we were talking about protecting moves and making them mean something. Look at all the guys that do super kicks, and Shawn Michaels means something and nobody else's does.
Yeah, his timing is usually perfect on it.
Yeah.
Not always, but usually. Let's go to Derek in Manchester, New Hampshire. Derek, what's going on?
Hey, guys. First of all, I just want to say how much I respect all three of you writers. You're truly a credit to the profession. So I have two quick questions. The first one is about the Hurricane. If we lived in some sort of bizarro world that cruiserweights weren't pigeonholed into a certain slot in the WWE, regardless of what they do you think he could actually be booked to be a big draw? And I say this because I think his gimmick is one of the only innovative things done in wrestling since Crash TV. However, I'll acknowledge that I'm a huge comic book fan, and that might bias me. But I do write on the Torch website often how the success of things like Spider-Man the movie show that the audience that the WWE is not attracting at all right now are ready to accept something like his gimmick. And I was wondering what you guys thought of that.
I think it's an entertaining gimmick, but I don't see. I mean, to me, I don't see it anything more than like something that you do underneath, like what Crash Holly was doing a couple of years ago as the Hardcore King. It's just something that you put on a show, but not a. I don't see Hurricane as a main eventer with that gimmick, or anyone with that gimmick as a main eventer.
I don't think there's a real comparison between what the Spider-Man movie did. I speak also as a comic book fan of many, many, many years, so I can't really. I see where where Hurricane, gets the stuff, but there's not very far you can go in depth with a character like that. It's just something that's cute and funny. The other part of his character that really is a problem is, and I think it got him on the air, is he's got the lisp. And they thought it was funny that he's kind of a dumb guy, thinks he's a superhero and all that. And and that gets kind of tiresome after a while. I think he's an athletic enough guy that he's got a future, but I don't see it for the rest of his career as a Hurricane. And, the other thing is, if you're going to compare him to the movies, I remember when years and years ago, remember when Brad Armstrong was Arachne Man?
Yeah, that didn't get over either.
And that didn't get over either. If you compare him to the movies or even the comic books or whatever, there's only so many powers that they can show a guy having. And we've seen pretty much all of that. So, a guy in a cape, he looks kind of silly, and I don't know. There's not that far you can go with it. And I think they've gone about as far as they can with it.
Okay, we're going to have to head to a break right now. We're going to be back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bruce Mitchell. And we're going to be here every Sunday night, which I guess means that next week, since we're going from 8 to 10, we're going head-to-head with that movie that we've been plugging.
Good.
No, that's actually not true. I think the movie's at 10. So we're not. We're going to be right before the movie. So anyway, that's not bad. Lead in for the movie. Right after Sunday Night Heat that nobody watches. Remember when Sunday Night Heat used to be a big deal?
Yeah.
It wasn't all that long ago. It's like, I don't know, they gave up on that thing. Let's go to Shiloh in Salem, Oregon. Shiloh, what's happening?
Hi.
Hey.
How you doing?
Doing good.
I saw the debut of Portland Wrestling on WB Saturday night.
What did you think?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's a good start for him.
Okay, good.
I think Adam Firestorm looks really good. American Dragon, of course, obvious. It wasn't a great match with those two, but I think it can get better from there. I think they were doing the best with what they had to work with from those guys from ECCW. Bryan Alvarez, I've never seen you wrestle before. That was pretty good, especially with the grappler. Again, doing the best you could. It was nice seeing the commentators, not seeing Don Toss anywhere around. That was, I think, really good. But my question about the new Portland Wrestling is, how are these guys going to get paid? They're giving tickets away, and I know that's done a lot in the business today, but how are they going to pay these guys and keep this going, especially if they're not going to be running house shows anywhere around the state of Oregon?
It's strictly advertising money.
Okay, because they did have quite a few plugs for products all throughout the show.
Yeah, the plugs were everywhere, and they don't have any rent or anything like that because it's a studio. And the WB owns it, so I guess they just figure if they get enough to cover advertising, then they're set.
Okay, and then in recent weeks, you've been talking about the dilemma with WWE, the broadcasters sucking, coachmen, the list goes on. What's being done on the independent scene to kind of maybe groom some new people?
Well, nothing's being done directly.
Announcers?
There just happen to be some people on the independent scene that have done it that are fairly decent.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And it's sort of frustrating to me watching independent tapes and seeing some people that are much better. And granted, okay, Jim Cornette, doesn't want to go there, and they don't ask because they know he doesn't want to go. But
He's so busy.
What?
Cornette is best right where he's at, grooming the talent for the future.
Yeah. Hey, he actually is, except that when he grooms them and then they take them and do the exact... You see, they have no long-term planning. Jim Cornette has trained Shelton Benjamin, not so much Charlie Haas because he was more, in other places, but Shelton Benjamin from day one to be this baby face. And then he shows up on TV as a heel, and he doesn't know how to play heel because he's never done it.
Ever in his life.
That's right, ever. And it's like, so, I saw him on the house show the other night, and he doesn't know how to be a heel, and it's not his fault, and he's looking green because he doesn't know how to be, he groomed Leviathan to work a certain way, and then they bring him up there with a different gimmick, and the guy was lost. And it's like, There's that aspect of what Jim Cornette is doing and what they're doing, that disconnect. I use that word a lot. It's just so frustrating because, we'll watch guys on OVW and know how to use them and know their future. And, granted, they've done a great job with Lesnar, and Cena's going to make it again, even though he hasn't been used right. He will end up.
Against all odds.
Yeah, against all odds, he will make it because his talking is just that good. But, they don't, they have to come up with their own things, and it's hurt their product. I mean, greatly. I mean, my God.
Speaking of Lesnar, is he going to be 100% for WrestleMania?
Mania, who knows? That's several months away. But hopefully, I don't think any of these guys are going to be 100% because they don't take time off when they're hurt.
Okay, and then finally, with the Tough Enough, why don't they spend more time instead of in the ring doing the moonsault thing and all these segments that they've been doing, working on the work rate? Why don't they spend a little more time next season on maybe mic skills and showcasing that and kind of working with that and kind of showing the fans at home what it takes to be good on the mic and maybe to groom them in the beginning a little more?
I don't know. Because I have a feeling that if there is another season of Tough Enough, which there's a good shot there will be, that they will probably take it, try to do something different, because I think that they'll see the falling ratings for the season as the idea that this direction of Tough Enough may have run its course. So they're going to try to do something wacky. You know how they do on TV? They introduce the new cousin or something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Maybe they can train little kids to be wrestlers. Too.
Oh, God, please.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Matt Ratz?
Yeah, Matt.
They could bring in Eric Bischoff.
That's trouble waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, you're very welcome. We're going to go to Lowell, Massachusetts, and Victor. Victor, what's happening?
How you doing, Dave?
Doing really good.
How's Bryan doing?
Good.
And Bruce? Got one question for you. Do you think today's wrestling scene is missing the major territories to produce seasoned talent?
Yeah, but it's not going to... That part of wrestling is...
That's gone forever?
I don't want to say forever. The way it was in the 70s and 80s, yes, that's gone forever. There's always going to be these things like these Portland wrestlings that pop up, but they don't give the guys enough work to where it's such a huge jump from Portland wrestling, that Bryan does, to WWE, and there's not that transition. It's not the old Portland wrestling where these guys are working 6 nights a week and doing 20-minute matches, and after 18 months of that, you're pretty good.
Well, one of the problems right now with WWE is they desperately need new acts, and they rode ECW going out of business and then getting a lot of talent through that, and then WCW going out of business getting a lot of talent through that. They didn't do all that good a job of making the most out of that talent, but now there's no other place like that, and the territories, I agree with Dave, are not coming back, the territories that we knew in the 70s and mid-80s and 60s.
The economics are different. The reason they're not coming back is two. Number one, the cost of television time is too expensive, and number two, you just can't get people will not buy tickets to see territorial wrestling today. They just won't. There's a million reasons why, but anyone who's worked indies, and Bryan works indies every week, he's not working in front of 1,500 and 5,000 people, which is what a lot of those guys did in the old days. Portland wrestling, they were they drew good crowds every Saturday night. You can't do that today. It's just impossible.
Is that thanks to Uncle Vince or? Obviously.
It's thanks to cable television. If it wasn't Vince, it would have been somebody else. I don't blame. Vince had a lot to do with it, but Vince upped the ante and changed wrestling to where it costs so much money to impress people, and people want, when people go, they want to see a Titantron, and they want to see the fireworks, and they want to see superstars, and when they don't see that, you can give them good wrestling, and there's a core of fans, very small core, that do want to see the good wrestling. But you've seen with Ring of Honor, we saw it with King of the Indies last year, in the number of people that will go to a show, and these are, great, talented shows, it's embarrassingly small when you get right down to it.
Yeah, especially I remember going back when I post the flashbacks, and I'll read a year after ECW went under, there'll be a show that had a half dozen guys from ECW or more that were on TV featured every week, and it drew 100 fans.
Yeah.
Because it's not wrestling. Wrestling is what Dave was talking about. Now wrestling is the Titantron and the pyro and the loud music, and it's a big show, and that's to Vince's credit that he raised the the ante's so high on it that it's really hard to compete, but it's also a problem because now when they go and it's a flat show, that you can't get by with just wrestling, and you can't get by. You've got to do all these other things, and he may have pushed the ante so high it's going to be hard for him to ante up at some point.
It will be, and it is, because I know, like, I was at a house show Friday, and there were people disappointed because there was no Titantron and because there wasn't really a lot of pyro, and you know, so. And all they saw was wrestling matches,
and they had to pay whatever it was, $20, $40, or whatever it was.
Yep.
When twice a week for 4 hours, they can watch it they can watch it for free.
Yeah, and and not enough. Some people were complaining not enough interviews. It's like you can't duplicate the TV thing at a house show unless you spend the money that you do on TV. And if you spend that kind of money, you'll lose money at the house show because you know what I mean. It's one of those things.
Right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Bruce, one more question. Is there a chance we'll see you against Pat McNeil at WrestleMania with Wade Keller as a guest referee, possible?
I'd prefer to see Wade Keller versus Pat McNeil with me sitting on my couch at home.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good night. You're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks very much. We're going to go to Muskegon, Michigan, and Mike. Mike, what's going on?
How you guys doing tonight?
Doing really good.
Just one quick comment I wanted to make. On a subject you guys brought up towards the beginning of the show about how the WWE seems to be kind of bashing their own product. And I was watching Confidential last night, and I noticed they did that, dream match
Bryan
between RVD and Superfly Snuka, and they, for some reason, they decided to say Snuka was the better guy.
That was mind-boggling. That was more mind-boggling to me than what Ernest Cat Miller said. I'm just, you're trying to. One of those guys you can sell tickets for. The other guy is retired. Which one do you want to push?
All it did is prove to me that Mike Tenay's wife knows more about wrestling than any of these people running their company. Because the first thing she said, why are they saying this?
Good question.
What, is Jimmy Snuka coming in? No. Well, then why are they saying this?
Exactly.
There's a time where, those guys probably thought, when they were kids, this mythic figure was Jimmy Snuka. They were big wrestling fans, and he was the big.
Hey, I mean, I remember it too. Watching that stuff, and I mean, Jimmy Snuka was it for a couple of years there in New York.
I remember the first and only television taping I went to at the WRAL TV5 studios, and he was there, and I thought he was the biggest bastard I'd ever seen in my life. Little did I know that 20 years later he wouldn't be in the top 100. But I just can't believe someone didn't just stop him and go, look, Rob Van Dam's our star today. Just say that he was a great star, but Rob Van Dam would take him because wrestling's so much better, or WWE is so much better, or we're sports entertainment now, or put over your own product. But I guess there's sometimes to me in WWE where they're honest, where they should be shilling, and then, of course, they're shilling when they should be honest.
Kind of wonder if Triple H maybe was in the booth and they're producing that one.
That was my thought.
I don't think so. I
don't think he wants to wrestle Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah, really.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to Adam. Adam, we've only got a second before the break, so...
All right, should I say the question, or you just want to go to break?
Go ahead.
All right. I read Hogan's book, and I'm not sure. Did you read the book yet, or?
Oh, the book.
Yeah.
It took me about 5 pages of writing and 2 days to correct the mistakes in that book.
Yeah,
that book was unbelievable fiction.
Yeah, if you're looking for it to compare it to Foley's book, it's not something you want to read, and I am surprised they stuck out the 3 days to read it. But the one thing that stuck out the most to me was his comments about Bret Hart in a specific chapter. And he was confused as to why Bret Hart does not like him and why...
Bret Hart does like him. That's the funniest part of the whole thing.
That's what confused me as well. And
well, hold on. If you want to talk about that, we're going to go to a break right now. We'll hold, and we'll come back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome to the final segment of the show here on Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter. These 2 hours always goes by way too quick because we're about out of time. I'm going to go back to Adam, because we're here with Bryan Alvarez, a Figure 4 Weekly, as well as Bruce Mitchell, and he's talking about Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart. Okay, Adam.
This is probably the thing that stuck out the most to me in the book, and as you said before the break, he was really reluctant. He didn't really understand why Bret Hart would trash him in his Calgary Sun column.
And Bret Hart did when Bret Hart worked for WWE and never thought he would ever be working for WCW, or work for WWF, he used to trash Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair pretty regularly. Once he went to that company, he had to make peace with both of those guys, and he did, and he never trashed either of them ever again.
Well, see, what confused me was that Hogan was all like, "Oh, why doesn't Bret Hart like me?" And what I took from it was that they went over the whole situation at the King of the Ring where he was going to drop the belt to Yokozuna, but he didn't want to drop it. Hulk Hogan, he didn't want to lose to Bret Hart, basically. And what I thought was that Hogan really didn't want a job to Bret Hart overall, and that's still to this day. I still believe he would never job to Bret Hart, whether Bret Hart was bigger than him or not. But
he never did. So I guess that answers your question.
Basically, I don't.
And they were supposed to wrestle at Starrcade '98, and Hogan got that program derailed.
Yeah.
So I think there's something. Hogan's got his way of thinking. That's all I can say. And
that book pretty much showed how big of an ego he had, because there was lots of times where I would just in my mind I would say, wow, he's on an ego trip right here to Serena Sentence, and that whole book,
he sees himself as Babe Ruth. I mean, he sees himself as bigger than wrestling, and so as someone who's just wrestling disrespects him, you don't disrespect the king. I mean, and I don't mean Lawler. I mean, you don't. That's how he sees it. That he's this guy that raised the level for everybody, that made everybody else money, and they should be grateful, and they should just ride his coat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The truth is, there's some truth to that, and there's a whole lot of not truth to what Hogan said. Even what he said in the book about the F title didn't add up if you knew the situation.
No, well, so much of that didn't add up in the whole book. I mean, it's like almost all the stuff that I know didn't add up, and so then I'm thinking of the stuff I don't know, that probably doesn't add up either, although I don't know. Anyway, we are totally out of time, Adam. Thank you very much. Bruce, thank you very much for joining us. Brian, of course, thanks. We'll be talking next week. Got a whole bunch of good guests lined up for the rest of January, so this is going to be a lot of fun this month. We'll see you next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Wrestling Observer Live. Listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.